Thanks, Gary, for coming on tonight and agreeing to be interviewed. So I've known Gary for a long time, since about 1986.
Yep.
And we go back a way. We actually slept in a caravan about for about 3 months while we picked cotton out at Springshaw.
Yep.
In 1988.
Arcturus Downs.
So, Arcturus Downs, Springshaw, yeah. So you want to tell us a bit about growing up, Gary, and what life was like for you?
Yeah, so
growing up?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, I grew up. I was the youngest of 4 kids. Grew up on a small farm at just out of Nanango, down in good old Joe country, and yeah, so it was a bit of a normal sort of upbringing, I suppose, for a lot of people. Hard working on the farm and things like that, and Dad was actually a furniture upholsterer by trade, and so the farm was the second thing that, yeah, the actual farm block next to us is where my grandfather settled 100 years ago this year, so it is our centenary. But yeah, grew up, I went to Sunday school for a couple of years when I was a young kid, but after that, there wasn't really anything like that. So yeah, sort of growing up on the farm, working, going to school at the local school at Nanango, and didn't get into too much trouble in those years. I think one time Dad almost ran me over with a tractor when I was about 5. So yes, miracles do happen, because anyone who's driven a tractor knows they usually don't stop within about 4 feet when you're cruising down a hill. And yeah, so I was only about 7 then when yeah, I survived that. And yeah, normal sort of upbringing. When I left school after grade 10 and moved to Brisbane, and yeah, I sort of got introduced to church in my later teens when I was about grade 9. And so when I moved down to Brisbane after grade 10, yeah, got saved at little Baptist church that we were going to. Yeah, normal sort of upbringing.
Yeah. And so what was your relationships like with your family, Gary?
Yeah, I suppose not too bad. In those sort of years, I suppose, yeah, and the lifestyle brought up to, kids were seen and not heard type of thing. Dad was one who never showed a lot of emotion. We knew he cared for us, but I don't think I ever heard him say the words "I love you." So I never, it's sort of one of those things that over the years it sort of had always been on my mind. But yeah, compared, as I said, I can't complain. It was a pretty good life, I suppose, growing up and with the family. Being the youngest of the 4, I'm the only member of the family that's actually a Christian. Both my grandmothers had strong Christian faith, but it sort of skipped to Mum and Dad, and yeah, and the rest of my siblings, they sort of haven't really been interested or gotten involved in that in any way.
Yeah. So you said your father was pretty hard emotionally, like he didn't share his emotions. Did that have any effect on you, think, or on your relationships later in life?
Yeah, in a small way. Like, I suppose sometimes having not heard it said to me, it probably, in sometimes it sort of comes hard, as it sort of became hard for me to express that sort of emotion. But it's something that, I've certainly worked hard on and made sure that I sort of break that cycle, especially like within my own family and with my kids and my wife, just to make sure that they actually say that and mean it. And yeah, just to break away from that cycle and not use it as an excuse to hide my emotion.
So you tell your son that you love him?
Yep, every morning when I drop him off to school, because his school's about 2 minutes from my office, so I drop him off, and every morning, and then he walks back over to me in the afternoon. But yeah, it's always have a good day, and tell him that I love him every day.
Yeah. And how about you tell him that you're proud of him?
Oh, absolutely. Even despite some of his failings at school and different things, and things you get up to, always tell him, yeah, we're proud of him and what he does do. And it's a bit of a battle with his autism at times to cope with some things, but yeah, he's got a good heart, and yeah, quite proud of the the end result. So because it is a tougher battle for him.
Yeah. So you ventured overseas.
Yeah, my first trip was with New Tribes Mission over to PNG, and that sort of all came about because my boss, who I was working for in down at Slacks Creek in Brisbane, he and his wife are Christians, and I actually got the job from a newspaper article that said "Born Again Christian Lad Wanted," and I just had a phone number, and I was working for a bricklayer at the time. And he said, oh, he's having a bit of poking fun at me. So, yeah, you better go apply for this job, Gary. This was on a Friday afternoon. That afternoon, or Friday afternoon, I went and made an appointment at the job interview on Saturday. And on Monday, I walked back and said, oh, by the way, I'm giving you a week's notice. I got that job you pointed out to me. And he's like, oh, I didn't really mean you to go. But, and that sort of started a really good friendship, and they actually became my family later on. But yeah, they had a friend who was, at the time, was the principal of New Tribes Bible College in Sydney, and they were looking to send up a mission team to PNG, and they said, look, we want to help out, we can't go, but we want to pay for you to go. And at the same time, I was contemplating full-time work with Sunshine Ranch, horse riding Christian camping place just out of Brisbane, and it was sort of a bit of a toss-up, which way I was going to go. And Sunshine Ranch said, oh, look, we'll wait till you come back from PNG in case you decide you want to go back there. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, nah. And I was looking forward to the adventure. When I got to Sydney, because there was 3 teams going, and the team I was on, we were going to have about a 2-day canoe ride up the coast and then up a river and about a half-day walk into the village. And when we got to Sydney, I got told, oh, by the way, you're now going to be on this other team, which we had no canoe ride, and we had a 2-day hike through the jungle to get to the village. And I'm thinking, this isn't fair, and grumbling and muttering away. And when we got to PNG the night before we flew over to where we're going to start the hike from, we were talking to the missionaries on the radio, and they're just chatting in the way and that. And they said, oh, by the way, is there anyone in the team who knows anything about chainsaws? And suddenly I felt this big spiritual kick up the backside, thinking, this is why you're on this team. Because my job for the last 4 years working at a hire company was servicing chainsaws every day of the week. And yeah, so I think, yeah, okay, God, look, I know why I'm here now. Yep, all good. And yeah, and the next day happened to be my birthday as well, so I had a beautiful sunrise, almost as good as the sunset behind me. And yeah, look, it was a great time. And when I got back to Brisbane, and the chainsaws that I had to fix, they were pretty old and clapped out a lot of the equipment that gets shipped off to missionaries. So when I got back to Brisbane, I went to the company that supplied all the stuff to our the hire company I was working for, and they were actually missionaries from SIL from PNG, and they owned a big chainsaw outlet down at Springwood. And so I went and bought this brand new steel chainsaw, got it at cost price, and they let me pay it off over the next couple of months. And then when I was back up in PNG 5 months later with my own church, I took it up and we dropped it off and had it shipped over to the village, or to the people, the missionaries that I've been working with, because later that year they were going to be building an airstrip. And so at least this time around they had a decent chainsaw that was going to get them through the job.
And then your second trip overseas was a bit different too.
Yeah, well, I had 2 trips in 1985, and because when I got back from the first trip and went back to Sunshine Ranch, I said, "Oh, look, I still want to apply for a role here." And they said, "Look, we decided that you probably need to get some more experience for training and that. So look, we probably won't consider you at the time. You need some more formal training. So I'm thinking, oh, fine, I'll go to Bible college. And so the next year I ended up at Bible College of Queensland doing a 2-year diploma. And after 2 years there, well, actually, while I was at college, we had a mission convention up at Mount Tambourine, and talking to one of the missionary couples that I knew, because they were back from PNG on furlough, and they mentioned, that they didn't have anyone in the group that had a shot firer's license, being able to handle and use explosives when it came to building airstrips. So I was thinking, well, I've been using explosives since I was a little kid on the farm. My grandfather was a demolitions instructor in World War II. So I went and applied through TAFE and did the shot firers course. And so I did a 12-month course in about 5 months to rush through so I could get it done in that same year. And I'm still probably the only student in the history of Bible College of Queensland to do an explosive course as an external subject and have it accredited to my diploma.
Yeah, right.
And
did you end up
that led
using
me from that, because after Bible College I came up to Billawheeler and worked with you and your dad there for about 8 months. And at the end of that season in August, I got a job interview with CBS Explosives for a position over in Bougainville. And the manager, or the general manager of the company, a guy by the name of Kevin Waldock, is into racing cars. He actually sponsored Glenn Seaton at Bathurst back in the late 80s there. And at the job interview, because I was pretty straightforward and told him, look, I'm a Christian. When I'm in my own time, I'll be working with a church and things like that. And he just looked at me, says, "You've got the job." And he says, most people, when they come up here, there's a bit of a glamour and all an adventure, and as soon as the novelty wears off, they either hit the alcohol or get into other sort of trouble. And he says, if you want to work at the church, you've got my full blessing. You can use all the resources of the company. You're set. And so I ended up, arrived up in Bougainville at the second last week, or just the week before Christmas in 1988. And it was interesting. We had a pre-Christmas church service, and there was all denominations, because the little church up at the mine itself was built by the mining company BCL, but all the churches got to use it. So in the morning you'd have the Catholics, and then the Lutherans, and then United Church. They all took that. They all had their little slot when they used the church building. And I bumped into the United Church pastor, and we just got chatting, and sort of mentioned, that I'd been to Bible college the year before. And he walks away, and he comes back a few minutes later and says, "By the way, you're preaching next week. Thank you." And then just walks off. I think, oh, okay. And so I had 6 months working up there. So so involved in the church. And then about 3 or 4 weeks after that, the pastor had been doing some training of the young guys for lay preaching. And then, he sort of called them all forward after the course they'd done. And then he called my name out, and I'm sort of looking, hang on. And he looked straight away and says, "Yeah, I know you didn't do my training, but you've done better. You've done more training. So you're part of the group now." And so I was involved in the church there. And it was just a really blessed time that I had there. And
So you went, enough that you went to WA and came back.
As Bougainville at that time, because there was a lot of issues with the local landowners wanting fair compensation and that, and there was, what you were seeing in the media back in Australia was nothing was like what was actually happening there, to a degree, in that the stories being told of what was happening, a lot of it was stretched way beyond what the truth was. Like, we used to get the local news telecast out of Cairns and Townsville up there, and they're talking about all the issues on Bougainville, and we'll be sitting around with friends looking and says, well, are they talking about the same place? And it was a big beat up, but as things did start to deteriorate, they decided, look, we're going to send everyone home for 3 weeks while we get things sorted out. And yeah, I didn't get back to PNG for 26 years.
Mm.
And because when I got back to Brisbane, I had a week just holiday in Brisbane, and they said, "Oh, look, can you go over to Western Australia for 3 weeks just to fill in up at Paraburdoo?" And it took me 17 and a half years to get back to Queensland.
But
And
something happened while you were over there. You never
oh
the same again.
yeah, well, I spent Paraburdoo up in the Pilbara, and had a stint over in Telfer. Again, went there for 2 weeks, and 2 months later, I finally got back to Paraburdoo. Then I packed up all the plant that we had there because I was manufacturing one of the components they use in the explosives on the mine sites. But we were packing up the plant and moved everything down to Kalgoorlie. So arrived in Kalgoorlie on Australia Day 1990, and yeah, spent the next 17 years there. Yeah, again, got involved with the church again. So probably from the age of about 17, I'd always been involved in church in one way or other through either worship leading, and in the younger years in Brisbane from about 18 through to when I went to Bible college, I was with Boys Brigade. And so when I was in Kalgoorlie again, I was back in worship leading and then helping leading with the youth groups and different things. And then finally, sort of, and I'd gotten to a point in my life where sort of, because I witnessed my parents' divorce when I was 18, and that was a pretty rough time for me. And then I saw my sister, her marriage breaking down and being divorced, and my second eldest brother being divorced, and I'd gotten to a point where I decided, look, I'd rather be unhappy single than to be unhappy married. So I basically just put it to the side and sort of wasn't pushing anything. And then one day, one of the girls from the church who worked at the maternity ward, she came and said, "Oh, look, there's someone I think you should meet." I think, "Oh yeah, righto, what's going on?" And yeah, she was working with another lady who happened to come from Queensland as well, but she went to the AOG church and said, "Oh, I think you two should meet." So finally, they sort of wore us down. We ended up being set up on this blind date, and yes, that was in June of '99. And then about 8 weeks later, we were starting to look at engagement rings, and here we got engaged on the 9th of the 9th, 1999, up at Picnic Point at Toowoomba, and it was 11 Queensland time, which made it 9 WA time, where all my family and friends were. So yeah, we got married in 2000.
True romantic, Gary Lewis.
I had it all planned because we actually both came over.
Just so you can remember.
Well, that's another point, because we made it easier for ourselves because we got married in 2000, so I know which wedding anniversary we're up to each year. Our first child, our daughter, she was born in 2002, and our son was born in 2004. So we just kept it simple to be able to track all the important dates and years. Makes it simple, and I don't get in trouble then for missing anniversaries.
Yeah. So now you live in Mount Isa.
Mount Isa. Yeah. So I had a transfer with work. So I worked after I left Dino. I got retrenched from Dinos in end of '91, and I ended up spending 5 months unemployed over there rather than come back to Queensland because I knew I had better opportunity in WA. Plus, with all the family politics that was going on at the time, I thought I was safer sitting over in WA. And yeah, so I've been with the company I'm with now, Bradken. This is my 29th year with them. And so I transferred because I've been in the mining side of it. So we sort of manufacture all the teeth, earth moving equipment and all that sort of thing. And then transferred to Mount Isa in 2006. And along the line, I've had a change where I've gone from the mining then into the fixed plant mineral processing. So now my job is we supply also the mill liners for the SAG mills and ball mills and crushers, and all the chutes, liners for chutes, and anything that's going to wear while they're processing and crushing rock, whether it's from hard rock. So around my area here, we've got gold, copper, lead, silver, zinc, and then also down to the Bowen Basin, we supply equipment for the coal down through there as well. And so it's good because it's been a quite an interesting career over the years. But now my region covers all of Queensland, plus I still have one mine over in Papua New Guinea that I look after as well.
So what do you do in your spare time, Gary?
Spare time,
That's
what's that?
territory.
Yeah, a lot of it. Like COVID sort of last year put a big stop to a lot of the travelling and that I would normally do. So we've sort of had to rely on phone calls. We use Zoom. We'd actually started using Zoom within the company before COVID hit, so I already had a bit of exposure to it. And then phone calls. So when you can't get the answer you want from emails bouncing back and forward, I just get on the phone and ring up. What do you really want? What is it you're trying to do? To try and get around. Sometimes you get a misunderstanding or crossing communication. So if you talk to the guys, well, you can work out, okay, well, you need this, not what you were saying. And look, it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job almost sometimes. Thankfully, I don't get called out too much now outside of hours. But when you say spare time, well, I think I usually go back to work on a Monday for a rest from the weekend because because we've got Boys Brigade on a Friday night, so with the youth, so the boys, and then Saturday if I'm on music, well, we've got music practice, and then Sunday's tied up, and then so it keeps me fairly busy. But Boys Brigade's been a big thing again for me because I was involved with it earlier back in 82 through 85 when I was in Brisbane. And then back in 2016, the company in Mount Isa, because it had been shut down because of the lack of leaders, and they decided to, young guy and his wife decided to kick it off again, so I joined in again. And then last year when they left town, I ended up taking over the leadership, so the captaincy of the Boys Brigade company. And so that, again, keeps me pretty busy. And
how's your relationship go with your son now and your daughter, Gary?
Well, it's really good because he's involved in Boys Brigade. Because when we got here, just as he got old enough to actually join Boys Brigade, the company closed down, and so he did a couple of years with the Joeys and Cubs and that. And by the time he got to the age to go to the Scouts, he said no, didn't want to go because the way that the bullying and the treatment that he was getting. So there was a few years where he didn't do anything. So as soon as Boys Brigade became an option again, I got him to join that. So he went straight in as a senior. So he was in grade 7 when he started that. So he's our oldest.
Oldest.
So he's our oldest boy in the company now. So at the end of next year will be his last year that he can be enrolled as a boy, and then after that he's sort of already been talking that he wants to join Boys Brigade as a leader, and that's sort of an absolutely great response. And as I was sharing with you today, because like we've got probably about 35 or so boys involved in the company, and at least half of those don't come from a church background. And so with what we get, we get an hour and a half, 2 hours into their lives each week, and being able to teach them and share God with them, and it's a real privilege and a real vital ministry that we've got.
That's really good, Gary. You're doing a great job there. And what's your hopes and dreams for the future?
Yeah, look, we'll certainly be here in Mount Isa for quite a few years to come, hopefully, unless up until God decides if He wants us to move on. But job-wise, it's not an issue. But look, I'll certainly continue to serve God in whatever area I can, or whichever area He's called me to. And it's just to continue on with that. And look, along the way over the years, look, there's been some hiccups along the way. Through the tough times, through work and that. But certainly continue on following God wherever it is that he decides that he needs us, or where he wants us best placed.
Yeah, that's great, Gary. Well, thanks very much for coming on, and yeah, you're a faithful man, Gary Lewis.
Yeah, I remember at Bible college once we had a session that we were doing spiritual gifts, and mine came down to one of my probably most prominent spiritual gift was that of serving. And I suppose I'm always one of those that I'll plot away quietly in the background, don't always ask for the limelight, but just plod along. If I see something that has to be done, just get in and do it. Sort of engagement party for my best mate's sister, and I went into the kitchen to get something, and I had to wash it up first. Next thing, I spent the next hour stuck in the kitchen washing up for about 100 people. Then shed night up here in Mount Isa, I got involved in cooking on the barbecue one night because someone wasn't there. So that sort of started, for the next year or so I was a cook, and then after that I actually ended up taking over running the shed for the next couple of years. It's one of those things, just get in, and if you see the job that has to be done, I just prefer, just get in and do it. And as I said, don't do it for the limelight. But probably usually try to avoid the limelight.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks very much, Gary. And we'll hand back to Simon.